Charles, people have been asking, and now we have it. Everybody wants to hear what you and Bob Bishop have to say about Doge, about USAID, about the rampant theft. I'm calling it American Hawala because it's not just USAID. It's this whole system, this opaque underground money system of moving billions of dollars around the world, isn't it?
It's outrageous. I've been doing a lot of flying, so I've only recently been able to check somewhat into the news. But let's do some whataboutism. I mean, what if the shoe were on the other foot? And we learned that during the Trump first presidency, that the government under Trump had given, we're learning now, USAID $250 million to a raft of supposedly mainstream legacy media to help them cope with their eviscerating subscriber base and economics. At the same time, what if under Trump, tons of money had been sent to censorship regimes to kick the New York Times and kick CNN and kick Politico and kick all these places off, while at the same time, going back to what Biden did, I mean, it sure looks to me as if the legacy media is entirely government funded. I mean, because it's not just the amount. It's that if Politico didn't have the sums that they had gotten for their pro subscriptions and their fancy one, it would have been out of business long ago. How the hell did Axel Springer, who we talked about in the past, with Nazi connections, strong Nazi connections, how did they pay $1 billion for Politico? Right? The only reason the numbers look good, apparently, is that the U.S. government was giving grants to Politico when it shouldn't have done so. So when you get inside this rot, this should be hair on fire, screaming matches from legitimate journalists like Jeff Gerth and other people like that, people in their 80s who exposed huge scandals along the way, who took on the government, cannot let this rest. And to the extent they're silent, this is the death knell for legacy media, in my view. And it's only the beginning. The 268 is just USAID. We don't know how much Department of Defense, allied NGOs like the Clinton Foundation and others may have also been funding to legacy media. We don't know how much money legacy media players got for crooked book deals to finance their lifestyles. This is tip of iceberg, and it is disgusting, absolutely disgusting. And shame on all the mainstream media people for being as silent as they are and focusing on the fake Indians complaint, Elizabeth Warren about Doge, or AOC saying that Elon Musk isn't bright. Shame on all of them. Not that I have any strong views.
Bob, what did you think about AOC weighing in on Elon Musk's intelligence? How are you, Bob? Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. I was thinking about the media and all this money going there. Is it any different than the Soviet Union and Pravda?
Yeah, Pravda's generally right.
I mean, it's they're using the same playbook, at the end of the day. One of the things we need to dive into is the deputy treasury secretary that was running the disbursement system or overseeing the treasury that eventually Elon Musk got a hold of. And that individual is a Nigerian migrant. And I think this is an interesting story that doesn't get enough play in the alternative media. I don't know. We might want to pull up his bio out of Wiki. See, and let the viewers.
You could also find it on all your emails. Isn't he the Nigerian prince who's asking for money?
Yeah, I mean,
different guy. Wally.
Yeah.
Wally World.
This guy was an Obama acolyte, and he was past president of the Obama Foundation for the library. I mean, this guy is tied in with BlackRock. He
looks 15.
Yeah.
How old is this guy, Bob? It's like the Black Alfred E. Newman. Who is this?
Well, if you look at it, he's like 40. He was born in 81, so he's about 42, 43.
Wow.
He's like the Doogie Howser of finance. I mean,
so what is this guy doing exactly, Bob?
Well, he was overseeing the disbursement system that eventually Doge got a hold of.
Well, I think, Bob, it's worse than that. I think he was did he go to Yale Law School as well? Was he in Hunter's class? But he the deputy Treasury Secretary, which I believe he was, could have that wrong. You can check there on Wikipedia. But if he was deputy Treasury Secretary, that's the person who functionally does run the whole Treasury Department, not just the payment system. And, under Janet Yellen, who's now a confirmed moron. I mean, the nerve of Congress.
Where was that confirmed? The Senate confirmed it.
Yeah, she's the court of public opinion. She's a confirmed moron. I mean, so they appoint this guy to run the guts of the Treasury Department. And I know my friend, I'm name dropping a bit, but Jay Powell, he never got to be deputy Treasury Secretary. He was Undersecretary of the Treasury for Domestic Finance, which I think is a pretty big job, but it's not quite as high as Deputy Treasury Secretary. How did Wally and the Beaver end up as Deputy Treasury Secretary?
He's a really good stand-up paddleboarder. Sorry, Bob.
Yeah, one of the interesting things is I went back and calculated the deficit under his regime, 8.5 trillion of debt deficits.
Gosh.
So think about it. This guy was writing checks for anything and everything, like ARPA funds that went to the cities, PPP loans. I mean, the amount of fraud that this guy had his hands on is unbelievable, in my opinion. I think that if I was Trump, I would go after him. I'd get him indicted.
Well, I would be careful. I'd make sure that I would have somebody who's African American look into this and lead the point on it, because you can imagine the race hustlers already will be saying, "Oh, look what he's doing," But this Biden regime it's certainly, and the inmates were running the asylum under Joe Biden. I mean, the collection of miscreants that had absurd amounts of power. Think about it. We had, what was that woman's name? Latrine, what the press secretary up there, day in and day out, the historic liar, getting up there day in and day out, lying to the world about what was really going on. She's the one, as I understand, you hear Dana Perino, who was the press secretary, or Ari Fleischer talk about it. The press secretary has to spend a lot of time with the president. You're telling me that Latrine never noticed the stench coming out from underneath Joe Biden's desk from his used Depends and his stuttering? I mean, McConnell falls downstairs. Biden was falling up the stairs going on to Air Force One. You're telling me that she never noticed the demented state of what passes for a brain inside Joe Biden over the course of 4 years? Never said to somebody, you know what, I think the president's kind of lost his edge. Instead, when questions arose, this is somebody who's supposed to tell the truth to the American people. Oh no, Joe he's really active. It's tough to keep up with him. For you, it's tough to keep up because you're a moron too. I mean, you're studying to be a moron. I mean, this is a collection of despicable individuals. It's not about politics. And from Jill Biden, Jill Biden was sleeping with a man. Are you telling me you didn't notice how far off he was? And now this, he's running the finances of the country as if Hunter Biden, has got the best collection of crackheads in the world to design a way of financing our country. I mean, and we've only just gotten into it. Imagine crack how team. Awful. Yeah, team on crack. Maybe that cocaine was being delivered to Wally in the White House.
Joe Biden signed with Creative Artists Agency. They wouldn't take me. Seriously, they said no when I tried to get an agent in L.A. But I don't know what Joe Biden will do, Bob. Do you know anything about this? I don't think this has much to do with USAID.
Nah, at 82 and as feeble as he is, I don't know how he could monetize it other than they just give him more money.
More speeches. But Bob, you had a lot more detail in this document that you sent me.
Yeah, what I want to do is, and Charles has brought this up, I've got a link there for the Obama Foundation. Well, let's open it up. It's a post article, and let's look at the disaster that's going on in the Obama Foundation. It is disgusting.
Well, he's a great manager.
Well, they're still building it, right, Bob? What's going on?
Yeah, but look at it. This one contractor is suing him. He's black for They
We
got
got to wait
knocked
through
down
all the ads here on Rupert Murdoch's. There we go.
Yeah, it's raised, $40 million discrimination lawsuit against the engineering firm for overruns, but they didn't do the concrete right, and the edifice is falling apart and cracking. I mean, it's crazy.
Is that bad?
That bad.
Should we not have done it? They botched the what was it? The industrial smoothing job on the Statue of Liberty. That was the Kroger industrial smoothing.
Well, this is an example of the guy that was overseeing the foundation.
Well, right, just put incompetent people in charge, right?
Yeah. Well, I think it's tough to have a smooth pour on concrete if the area there's filled with dead bodies. But my understanding though is that this minority-owned construction firm is alleging that the Obama Foundation's decision to make an issue over the bad pour is racist. Is that right?
Yeah.
So that's real headline news, because we're told it's impossible for blacks to be racist against other blacks, and now, if I'm understanding this properly, a black fellow is alleging racism against him. And if you look at some of the key players, I believe Valerie Jarrett was the CEO, or may still be the CEO of the Clinton Foundation. I think she's black.
The Obama Foundation.
Yeah, the Obama Foundation, right. So isn't that the headline? Yeah. Black admits that racism against blacks is possible by blacks.
But look, if you scroll down to that picture, look how hideous that thing is.
Oh, come on, Bob.
Oh,
well, it just looks like something from a Star Wars movie, doesn't it? I mean, and they stuck it in the middle of a park where everybody in this neighborhood in Chicago, well, not everybody. I went there when they first started doing this and interviewed a few people. And basically the sentiment was there was one pretty wealthy looking woman who was getting ready to go to work who said, "Oh, I like it because the value of my apartment will go up." So obviously she's owning a condo or something over there. Then there was another black woman, but this woman was taking the bus. And she was going to work as a nurse, and she doesn't like it because the rent is going up. Then there was a third black person I spoke to. Well, I mean, in other words, if you're rich, it's good because the value of the neighborhood is going up. But if you've lived in this neighborhood in Chicago for forever, renting your apartment, this is not good because it's going to make it more expensive for you to stay where you are. So generally, people in the neighborhood felt that this was intrusive and not helping them. It's Obama doing what he wants in the middle of a big park in Chicago.
Yeah. The rent's too damn high. Well, I mean, right. Isn't this a metaphor though another example of in the post Let's Praise Obama world, we now go back and look at his actual resume, his expertise, his accomplishments with a more jaundiced eye. Everything that motherfucker touched turned to shit. I mean, think about the period January 20th, 2009 to January 20th, 2017. Think of the number of regime change exercises across the country, inside the U.S. and outside the U.S., that apparently may have been funded by our government. And then think about, in that instability, Bob would know a lot about this as well, how much crooks like Soros and others could have profited knowing in advance that this regime was going down, or that regime was going down, or this government debt was going to be tumbling in value. So while Obama, got I'm amazed he didn't get the prize for the best lesbian on earth or something. He got every prize that you could possibly get. Let's give it to this guy for nothing. And so it's fitting that that his mess in Chicago. Which, by the way, what's the reason for it? It doesn't hold any presidential records. It's not a legitimate foundation. It's fitting that it be the mess that it is.
Yeah. So, Jason, let's go on to my article that I published on American Thinker.
Is that, not the Sonar 21?
Yeah, it's the Sonar.
This one. Okay, there you go.
Yeah. Diving into these, Doge is trying to recover, trillions of dollars, but it's very difficult to cut the budget. You have discretionary that takes a very small portion of about 20% of the budget. So they can cut quite a deep into there. But you got Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. It's difficult to get trillions of dollars every year out of that. But there is a way of recovering a lot of this money that's gone out the door. And one of the things that I've noticed is a lot of these NGOs, including nonprofits, have gotten very generous grants from the government. But the problem is that they overfunded it. And now, like this one NGO that I covered an article on, that's the First Day Foundation, has almost $800 million in the coffers that it can use because of the overpayments. Yeah.
Outrageous.
Yeah. I mean, you just go down there and look
Holy cow. So
Yeah,
what the hell are they doing with all this money, Bob?
They're sitting on it. Basically, they can use that money how they see fit. And so if you go back to their website, we linked in the article, we can open up and look at that right there. Click on that. If you go through this website, you don't see anything about donations. You don't even see who the officers are or who the board is. It's a good feel type of website, but what do they do other than they claim that they're divvying out grants for noble causes? But at the end of the day, very little money goes out the door. This money should be brought back into the treasury. You're looking at $800 million. We've got a number of these out there that we could recover billions and billions of dollars from. And I think that make a difference. We could also, to Charles's point in the past, we could collapse a lot of these nonprofits that are not legitimate nonprofits for hundreds of billions of dollars. Exactly. So I really think if we go after, the slush funds that I call it, and the inappropriate nonprofits and NGOs, you're looking probably close to $1 trillion at the end of the day.
Right.
And nefarious activities too.
Well, and I think as well, if you did a carrot and a stick approach and you said, listen, for people inside these operations, if you come forward with helpful information that results in a prosecution, we'll give you a whistleblower payment of substantial sum, maybe tens of millions of dollars. If you're talking about recovering 800 million, so you put the carrot out there, and then the stick is you find the first one, and you put the people responsible for this in prison for the rest of their lives, and not a nice prison. Pick one in North Dakota that's cold as hell in the winter and maybe hot in the summer. No country club prisons for this. This is outright theft.
I would say El Salvador would be better.
Oh, yeah, they're talking about contracting for that. But wait a minute, Bob. I've got a question, because this thing, it's giving out grants, and it's interesting because this is a pattern now. I saw another website like this earlier today where I was like, who's in charge? How do you give it money? But what is it doing? It's giving money to select government agencies. Why would this?
Well, it's not even doing that. If you go down and open up that tax return that's on ProPublica, we can go look at that.
That schedule, yeah.
Yeah, and then you go down to their expense and then look at the amount of grants that they shoved out the door.
Is it a lot or not?
Yeah, let's keep
She's
going
in San Antonio, this thing.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with this. This organization got two big groups.
Whoa, Kevin is doing pretty well as the president with the 1.1 million. So that's the thing. They just pay up a bunch of idiots to do who knows what, hire a bunch of contractors here. BDO, wait a minute. That's the...
No, it's not BKD.
Oh,
BKD.
Right. This is an advertising agency, right.
Yeah, keep going down.
IG True Grit.
Go down.
BBT Partners. I'm just looking at this because these guys could be hiring anybody for anything, right?
Yeah, keep going. That's the revenue. Now look at the expenses right there. Grants, 23 million.
Out of
780 sitting on their books left over. They had almost 800 million sitting on their books. This whole thing is a slush fund.
It's outrageous.
And what they did is if you go down through the return towards the bottom of the return, you're going to see that they have a fleet of other nonprofits. It's called structured finance. And you can't make sense of all of these different nonprofits that tie into this, that get different grants and things like that. But where they got a lot of their money was the unaccompanied minors.
Ooh, I don't like
That
that.
they brought in here for 300 or for 3 billion. Then they got into the deployment of the COVID for $7 billion. So $10 billion that they had stuffed in their pocket.
This is outrageous.
Yeah, I mean, this is not the only one. I can show you another one we can do as well, but it's absolutely crazy. And there's a fleet of these out there.
See, this is the point that I wanted to get to, Bob. It seems to me that this system that we're looking at, it's fantastic that Elon Musk is bringing attention to USAID, but it really is just the tip of the iceberg, right? This is kind of like an American Hawala system where we've got this huge network of nonprofits. Like, for instance, this is the Skull Foundation. I found they sent to the Peace Direct Inc., which their website is very much like the one that you just showed us. It's unclear who runs it, how you give it money. It's not trying to raise money. But in the purpose column, they tell us it's for a USAID initiative. So that got sent $50,000. And on the same return, this thing, Skull Foundation, sent the Lawfare Institute to Ben Whitty's home address $100,000 for something they describe as the January 6th project. What the hell did that entail? But isn't that like Hawala was designed to be this super opaque money exchanging system where you can send money around the world and nobody really knows where it's going to or who it's coming from? I mean, isn't that what we're looking at?
Yeah.
And this is reminiscent of what happened in New York City with De Blasio's wife getting $800 million. It's like, oh, I only got $800 million. I mean, I'm not quite a billionaire. Why should I have to tell you what I did with it? I mean, this is, you need to make, this is something people were saying on Musk's early move. It's what the advice that you get when you go to a tough prison. You know, you pick the biggest, baddest guy in the prison and punch that person in the face and hopefully knock him out. And maybe, maybe the rest of the prison people won't kill you during the term in jail. Similarly, what we have to do is we have to find, and obviously the Clinton Foundation is one good example, but the Obama Foundation, maybe Bush Foundations, maybe CPAC to make it bipartisan. We've got to take some scalps here and fucking, raid their homes and let the people have the protection of laws that they deserve, unlike what happened with Biden. And the Biden administration with Garland. But we need to make an example of the worst offenders. And then we need to shake this money tree really fucking hard. Because this is, I mean, you think about across America, the people who actually pay their taxes, the money that is just being burned here as people laugh at probably expensive restaurants, partying like Fannie Willis and her lover. The people who are raping and pillaging are taking your hard-earned money and doing this. And this precedent can't stand, because if it does stand, after Trump goes, at some future date, there'll be another team like Team Biden. And this time it won't be trillions of dollars they're stealing. If they can do it, it'll be quadrillions of dollars. This is really the most offensive thing that I've seen in my adult lifetime. And it really needs to be disciplined hard.
Yeah. Jason, let's go look at another one of these. It's in San Antonio. It's called Family Endeavors.
Yeah,
that's a good name. Family Endeavors.
And what they did is the same thing. It's the unaccompanied alien minors. They got billions for that. They also did the COVID scam, as well as the deployment for vaccinations and things like that. But if you go look at their tax return, which is real interesting, they're sitting on a large sum of money as well, probably around 500 million. Once again, to be divvied up under their criteria, but this money was specifically given for those two things, for the unaccompanied minors and for the deployment of the COVID vaccine. That excess money needs to go back to the government. So I'm showing right there $1.2 billion of recoveries right there. Yeah. There's no reason they can't legally go after it.
Wow.
Yeah. And to see, I mean, the email traffic, whatever communications, how these grants got together, who was really orchestrating this. There's an evil, quote, evil genius behind this. Maybe it's Wally and his Nigerian buddies. Maybe it's, I don't know, the fake Indian, somebody on her staff. Maybe it's Eric Chiaramella. There's somebody who saw this template, who maybe even saw our initial podcast going way back and saying, this crooked business model for charity fraud, this is a cool thing. Nobody's going to prosecute us. Why should we invent a new product or service when we can just steal from the taxpayer and live large?
This thing is the same modus operandi as the First Day Foundation. What it does is it has the structured finance. It's got a bunch of satellite nonprofits underneath it. And this money's flying back and forth between those entities.
I mean, these guys are paying themselves $650,000. It's pretty outrageous, no?
Oh, absolutely. And think about it now. They're not doing anything other than they got this big chunk of cash. So what are they going to do to deploy that? Who are they going to give it to? What political favors are they going to do getting this money? I mean, at the end of the day, it's crazy.
Do we have actual names of the trustees? Or any of the names pop out as being?
Yeah, they do have it on this one. One of them is a brigadier general.
No, that figures. In a kilt.
The Honorable Chip.
Yeah. Look up Chip Fulgrim. This guy's got an interesting background. I think if you type in his name, you'll find out a real interesting. He's tied into the DHS.
This is outrageous. This is outrageous. So these things then go hire law firms, hire PR firms, do all kinds of crap.
Well, this model's a little bit different. It used to be the military. You went and worked for one of the defense contractors. These guys work for these agencies, then went to work for a nonprofit instead.
Right.
And used their political connections to be able to get these grants under the auspices of doing good as a nonprofit. The reality is they went in to do good, but they're doing very well, to tell you the truth, when you look at their salaries.
Well, when you think, again, we're going, partially because I'm a little jet lagged, and forgive me for that, but we're going all over the place a bit. But you think about the paper trail that must exist in the Department of Justice and the IRS to not go after this. You've got to imagine that somebody inside the Biden administration got to Merrick Garland or somebody high up in the Department of Justice and said, listen, we are not going to prosecute anybody on our side for charity fraud. We're just not going to do it. You remember in the evolution of the Clinton Foundation scandal in 2016, the allegation was that Loretta Lynch more or less told, or people high up in the Justice Department told field agents at the FBI, you can investigate the Clinton Foundation, but we're not ever going to prosecute them. So good luck. Spin your wheels, have fun. Similar set of decisions must be memorialized at the Department of Justice. They're going to try to destroy the internal evidence. I'm not an IT expert, but I don't think anything can actually be destroyed if there's a lot of communication back and forth. And clearly to do this at so many different nonprofits, Bob has identified here 2. I'm guessing that there's probably another 100 behind it, if not another 5,000 behind it. So there's going to be a lot of evidence out there that whoever's going to run the FBI, who's ever going to be in positions of power at the IRS, can jump in and do something about. We've been asking for justice on the Clinton Foundation. Now, this is the 10th year, or 11th year, actually, technically in March, and still no justice. We got to get some scalps here. It's got to happen soon.
Yeah. Bob, do you anticipate we'll get justice before Juicy Smollett? He's looking for justice too. Yeah. I mean, all of these people are just stealing money. They're here smiling like jackasses, endeavoring to do what? So, I mean, what can be done here, Bob? They're trying to kick out Elon Musk now. I heard today the Democrats had a whole little conference where they're saying they need to fire him, and Ocasio-Cortez says he's stupid. She must know.
Well, this thing is much broader than just the nonprofits. And there's a couple of areas that I can mention that we can recover even more money. It's called the PPP loans.
Oh, yeah.
And if you look at the PPP loans, it's almost $1 trillion. The amount of fraud that is inside PPP loans is amazing. They say that there's foreigners that created LLCs and went ahead and got billions of dollars out of that 950 billion that they were going to allocate. We could recover a lot of that. We could pursue that. There would be very, very large recoveries on that. I'm willing to bet that there's probably $200 billion of recoveries, 20% of it.
Exactly.
Yeah. One of the interesting things, if you want to have fun with this, let's type in Operation Hope, one of the ones that we've been poking on over the years. And this is John Hope Bryant.
The
Oh, he got a lot of them.
No, it's under Atlanta. There's a lot of them that are named that. Operation Hope, Atlanta.
This is the German night?
The nights that go neat.
Yeah, but look at this. He had the whole thing forgiven. This guy makes almost $1 million a year. Lives in a mansion.
$2 million.
Yeah, but think about this. He got government grants and he got money from banks under the Community Reinvestment Act for helping for FICO scores.
Wait, they paid him 30 grand.
Yeah.
What? They gave him 30 grand more forgiven than what he actually borrowed.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh boy.
Again, I long ago, I was told by somebody that he was a beneficiary of a program at one of the credit card companies where crooks had gotten into this famous company, and there was a program where you got a card and you could spend, you'd be told how much you could spend per month, and you never got a bill. You could use that card and you could just, you could, if it's $5,000 a month, you get $5,000 a month. You don't pay income taxes on it. You just live large. I'm going to guess that program is more extensive than we believe, and that a lot of these politicians and staffers, the way maybe AOC pays for the $30,000 dress and the Tesla and the 2 mansions, and then has whatever her net worth is on a congressperson's salary. Maybe the way they're doing this is in league as well with crooked credit card companies and crooked banks. And I bring that up because Operation Hope is a network of dodgy financial institutions, in some cases very big ones, that give money to this thief and have done so now for 30 plus years to virtue signal that they're helping, African Americans, they're helping minorities. This guy, John Hope Bryant, we've made fun of him before. There are probably 1,000 John Hope Bryants rolling around. Al Sharpton, Reggie, what's his name? Jesse Jackson. Folks like that roll into crises, roll into volatile situations, demand money, live large, and nothing ever gets done about it. And the same, I think, is true of opportunists in the evangelistic community, with the crooked churches and stuff like that. The amount of low hanging fruit here that could be collected and must be collected, because our country is we've got good signs under the new team and Dogezilla, but we are facing bankruptcy here.
Yeah. Let me give a little background on John Hope Bryant for some of the new viewers. What I did is I filed a complaint with the California Accountancy Board and got his audited financial statements pulled, and they had to redo the tax returns because there were material errors in the documents, in the filings. So I used that to file with the Justice Department a complaint against Operation Hope that they were non-compliant on their grants. So there was an investigator put onto the complaint, believe it or not. And the investigator found, after I FOIA'd his documents of his results and his report, is that Operation Hope was non-compliant on the grant reporting. But even worse, there were no controls under the grants being given to him. In other words, the people that were giving him the grants had no authority to give him that money, period. So that gives you a good example inside our grant making process for the government, there are no controls. They give it to whoever their favorite partisan is, and he's a good example of what goes on in the grant making.
And and he must have to spin back some kickbacks to the people who give him the grants, as I guess.
Yeah, probably so. Well, he probably hires them ghost employees of some politician, and then
right, family members or whatever.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, and also, listen, there's going to be a million of these kind of schemes that we don't even know about. You just look at Eric Adams with the straw donor scheme. Anytime you create some kind of enterprise where you can hire a lot of people and pay them six-figure salaries, can't those people use some substantial portion of that salary to buy $5,000 American Express gift cards that somebody hands to somebody like a person in Congress? Go pay for dinner on your $5,000 American Express gift card that we just gave you.
Well, you know, what we need to do is, can you open up the Data Republican?
Oh, she's great. He or she is fantastic.
Yeah, let's open that up. Let's put John Hope Bryant's Operation Hope in there. Let's see what we get.
Yeah, that's, well, someone's trying to do that. This person is very adept with computers, I think. I say that as an amateur, and got noticed by Musk, so has got an amazing following now on X.
And let's type in Operation Hope.
Maybe in quotes?
No, that's fine. Nope. Oh, recipient. I think we're going to have to look up the EIN on that through ProPublica, and then put the EIN in there. I've looked at it, and it's a maze, let me tell you.
Yeah, I've got it right here. Hang on just a second. I just need somewhere I can copy it from.
How long is John's resume now? Last we looked, was it 80 pages or something? It was
something like that. He had all these other entities he was doing as well.
There it is.
There we go.
Yeah, he's got a couple million coming in there, or at least $1 million, it looks like.
Yeah, he was getting about $1.5 million when
1.3.
Yeah. So he's getting that every year. It's almost like a stipend that he gets from the government.
It's outrageous.
Yeah. What does he do when you look at those grants?
Well, and how does, I mean, if the president of the United States makes $450,000, if that's what the number is, and I think gets expenses of another 50 or 75,000, how is it that some nonprofit in San Antonio, the first one you were talking about, could pay its president 1.2 million? Bearing in mind, back when I used to work on Wall Street, a century ago, your salary, let's say, would be $125,000, $150,000, and your bonus would be, if you were good, $1 million or more. So everything, your total compensation seemed like a lot of money, but during the year, all you got was a relatively modest salary. These people running a foundation for 1.1 million are getting, divide that by 12. I mean, they're getting close to $100,000 a month in guaranteed salary. And as a guest, this is only part of their, they probably have other things they're doing at the same time, and I mean, you think about, Trump, in talking about the Department of Education, when it was formed, we had the #1 educational complex across the planet. By far, we really were doing good work in education. Now we're 40th, right? So you have a bunch of people who basically have been dumbed down through the educational system, and they learn if you work really hard, and you may fail, you could become a billionaire. But why not just go on Team Crooked with us, with Hillary, with Obama and others? You could be a moron. In fact, the dumber you are, the more likely we are to promote you, and come with us into the grifter world of nonprofits, and you'll do pretty well. I mean, Bob, if you made $100,000 a month in San Antonio, how well could you live?
I would live in probably a $5 million house.
Right.
Wow.
And I'd have a fleet of cars. I'd have a 5-car garage.
Would you get a Raptor,
Yeah.
Bob?
I don't think so.
What? Really? 5 million?
Yeah, maybe 10 million. What the hell?
Might as well you race 2 of them.
Yeah.
Well, so now wait a minute though. We've still got more in your document here. FDIC is insolvent.
Yeah, let's open that up. This is interesting, and I don't think the public is aware of it. The latest financial report came out February of last year. We got a new one coming out in 2024. If we go down to page 132, Jason.
That's where I'd start.
I think Bob read this already.
Yeah, I've looked at it. I was shocked when I looked at this. And this is the next
132?
crisis. Yeah, 132. This is the next crisis that Trump is going to have to face. It's the balance sheet. Keep going. Right there. Okay, so we had 3 large regional banks in 2022, like Silicon Valley, that collapsed. So if you look at that line, it says investment treasuries for 122 million.
Billion, right?
And a lot of those were underwater. They had bought the long dated at low interest rates. Those were underwater. They cashed them out with the Federal Reserve to do the takeover of those 3 banks under an assistance program. And you look at 2023, look at $18 billion is the only thing that's left in the treasury of the FDIC that's liquid, in addition to the cash.
Wow. What'd they do with all the other money?
Well, let's go down to receivables. No, right up, back up, Jason, back up. Keep going. Right there, stop. Now look at receivables from resolution. This is from the 3 banks that failed that were big. They have some type of a sharing agreement, and that sharing agreement was well over $100 billion. But they're writing off that receivable because it's not realizable. My point of looking at this is we're told that the FDIC insurance covers $17.5 trillion of deposits. But at the end of the day, we couldn't even handle a small regional bank failure. What it means is we're going to have to print more money out of the Treasury to bail out these failed banks. Now, there's a link that I've got in there, Jason, to real estate. We're looking at over $1 trillion of real estate that needs to be refinanced. And the losses in commercial real estate is staggering at the end of the day. And there's an example I've got on X to show the typical bank that has issues. We can talk about this before we go to
sorry,
that.
That's not it.
That's
sorry.
okay. But look down look at the interest rates on the 10-year constant that these banks loaded up on. Back during COVID, you're looking at under 1% in some cases. So if the banks had all this gush of money from all the money that the government was printing during COVID, and they invested it, and they're still holding that 10-year, we're looking at almost 5% on those treasuries now in the market. They have probably a 30% loss on those 10-year securities. What's going to happen is right now we got an issue where they use the reverse repo agreements, taking a lot of that securities and putting it onto the Treasury and the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve giving the banks money for liquidity. That repo agreement is now expiring. We're in an environment right now that is very illiquid. So we're going to see a lot of banks struggling. There's going to have to be another bailout of some form or fashion. Now you get into the commercial real estate, and we've got a serious issue right there. We got this maturity wall that's hitting us, and a lot of that commercial real estate is underwater big time.
And we've learned nothing. I mean, this is 2007 to 9 all over again. We've learned absolutely nothing. This is what happens when you get a demented fake president and a shadow government. Everyone's saying nobody elected Elon Musk. Who the hell elected the people who were orchestrating the mayhem under Joe Biden. We didn't. We may not have even elected Joe Biden in 2020. And this is what happens. I mean, the rot here is so deep, and all of these virtue signaling jerks in mainstream media and academia who were praising Joe Biden's fitness to serve, who were saying that it was conspiracy theory, that his health was questionable, who were trying to put Pete Buttigieg on a pedestal for his good work, or Janet Yellen. This is the rot here is really deep. It's so deep it makes me wonder whether there wasn't an actual and isn't an actual ongoing conspiracy to destroy the United States from within.
Oh, yeah. Well, Charles, wouldn't you also agree that it's somewhat disingenuous to say nobody voted for Elon Musk? He was out there towards the, home run stretch of the campaign on stage with Trump. I think a lot of people did vote for Elon Musk.
I think that's absolutely true, especially young people, especially.
Yeah. They said if Trump's going to hire Elon Musk to do to the government what he did to SpaceX or Tesla, then bring him in. And by the way, that's what he's doing. I saw this pretty good post from Tom Renz, who's a lawyer. I don't really know him personally, but I know Cullen was dealing with him for a while. He was saying that it appears that Trump has been through this very carefully. He's got Stephen Miller and very capable lawyers who work with him. They are aware of lawfare now. Maybe 2016, they didn't understand the scope of the treachery, but it seems like they have this pretty well figured out. They took some Department of Software Improvement or something that Obama had created, and they made that into Doge. So he altered an existing thing rather than creating a new thing, so they would avoid some of these legal, whatever.
Yeah, it's good.
Maybe that'll happen.
No, I think it is good. And the various people who scream, I mean, they're not screaming about these issues about Musk on Breitbart. They're screaming about it on PMSNBC, which has 60,000 viewers now. I mean, and on the subject of subsidies, these legacy media outlets, how much money did they get for those public service advertisements for COVID? I mean, when I used to watch television, it was not that idiot who was that top health person in New York, some Indian guy, would be on the television like 6 times an hour saying, people, there's absolutely no risk. I have 2 young daughters. I gave them a COVID vax. And you could question whether he really loved his daughters, but how much money was washing through that legacy media in the period 2020 forward from COVID ads?
Mm-hmm.
This guy committed perjury and then went on dates with people who know Stephen Crowder.
Wow.
Really? What was the guy's name?
This is Jay Varma. And remember, Stephen Crowder had some undercover investigation of this guy. He was in some kind of swinging relationship with his wife where they were having sex parties with the money from COVID or something. So then he went on a date with some girl and told her all about it. These guys are stupid as hell.
Wow. And this is the guy with 2 daughters?
Yeah.
Wow.
And the swinging sex parties with the COVID money. He's got a lot of energy.
Well,
Bob, do you have a table on how many PPP loans were used for sex parties? We can put that together if you want.
Yeah.
I don't know the full number just yet. There's just a couple more things you had here. I mean, maybe this is also still just about the impending financial implosion. What do we have here?
Well, this was to my point of what's.
Hello?
Here's one that sold for a stunning haircut. It was $275 million in Chicago. And if you scroll up,
But they
acquired it for
$375 in 2014.
And it sold for $100 million. Now, can you imagine if you're a bank holding debt for say $300 million on a building like that
for 10 years?
Yeah. I mean, what do you do with a building like that now?
Yeah.
Move in the migrants.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing of it is that this the process by which big companies are replacing human labor and therefore not housing them in offices anymore in major metropolitan cities. I mean, this is a systemic change that is not going to easily reverse. I think you may see in manufacturing more hiring of human labor as countries that don't want to be tariffed say, well, let's just move the manufacturing inside the U.S. But on office space, I would be I would not be somebody who is going to bet a lot of money that the office market's going to come back anytime soon. In particular, inside these blue states and cities that seem impervious to being run with common sense, right? I mean, isn't this is a very dangerous set of conditions? I think.
Yeah. Definitely need to stop wasting all this money through USAID. It's quite stunning to see the convulsions from people who are just making up total lies. I saw a Democrat, what was it? Maybe the Freedom Caucus? No, it was they just had a meeting in that little room, press conference. And they were saying that Elon Musk is stealing your tax money to use it for himself. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? They pointed to like $300,000 contracts that FEMA had for Starlink, which, look, I think viewers know I got my issues with Elon Musk, but that's like them getting like 600 Starlink units or something, It's like, why don't they just pay the money back and continue investigating them?
Well, there's a guy who I think he's painted by the Democrats as the future point person. This guy Rahm Emanuel, one of the dread Emanuel brothers.
He's the future.
Well, yeah, he was on TV, and I was on the flight. I was able to watch. It was so painful. I couldn't do it. CNN and BBC, but they had an interview with Rahm Emanuel on CNN where he was saying, "Listen. I was an ambassador, and I know firsthand just how valuable USAID is." So really, Ram, you were an ambassador to Japan. Why does Japan need money from USAID? Japan is, in theory, a very rich country. It should be giving money out. And the last people that we should be giving money to, having done so ever since 1945, are Japan. So he's arguing on the one hand that USAID was great, and people around Trump don't understand how important a role USAID plays. Yeah, right, Raym. Then he was saying that we need to make a crusade now, that Trump is going to destroy the Department of Education, and that is going to crush the fine educational bureaucracy that has sprouted up. Raym, that's also a good point, right? We've got this white vehicle standing out front of the office building. You're going to be put into it. Your arms are going to get wrapped up after we get through with this interview. But I mean, and the third point he was saying, and the billionaires around Trump want to cut the minimum wage. The minimum wage is the future of this country. I mean, this guy, he's delusional, and he's now being trotted out as somebody who's going to save the Democratic Party. He's the future of the Democratic Party. The future of the Democratic Party is, fade to black. That's the future of it. Mm-hmm. It's finished.
It really does seem that way. They're going to run John Fetterman in 2028. That'll be the whole. Yeah. Everybody will just have to wear Metallica hoodies.
But he'll be a Republican, at this rate.
Yeah. Now, what about this FBI purge? Bob, do you have any more financial information that we need to cover that we missed?
Well, the other thing I'd add is another scam is the $1.5 trillion ARPA fund that was done during COVID. And this was money that was given to cities, counties, and states. And I can speak firsthand of the $500 million that we got in San Antonio, and it didn't go to infrastructure. It went to social causes like housing the homeless, housing the migrants. Social media and influencers were getting paychecks out of it. One of the biggest scams, and once again, any of those funds that are not used, just like PPP loans or the nonprofit NGOs, all that money needs to be scraped back up into the treasury.
But it's all been spent on Lamborghinis and, whatever, Fannie Willis, you got to keep a few thousand around the house, Bob. You wouldn't understand.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they're never going to be able to get it back, right? Seriously, it's people wasted it on stuff. Lamborghinis they crashed, houses they burnt down.
I don't know. If it's sitting in a checkbook or in a bank account in a nonprofit, you can get it back.
Well, then, yeah.
And that's before we get into the role played by Harvard and Yale and Columbia extolling the virtues of the Biden administration. How much money can you get back from these places that have mega endowments and that have been, really the intellectual authority that fools the public into believing any of this is legitimate.
Yeah. One of the things I'd add is Bondi, who is the new Attorney General, she is cutting off money to sanctuary cities.
I'm loving that.
Think about that. So the federal funds aren't going out, which is a good thing.
Didn't Adams just say he's on the Zelensky program, I need 1.2 billion in 12 weeks. You got to give it to me.
Yeah.
I don't think so. Eric?
No. I don't know if you guys saw this detail, but actually there's been some sealed national security information filed on the docket in the Eric Adams criminal prosecution. So Pam Bondi has announced this working group to investigate this fatso and the Attorney General fatso. But there was when they announced that, I had to post this Helmo. Pam Bondi's doing that. But I don't know, where is the thing I'm looking for here? I've got a lot of posts from that. Yeah, here, look, this is posted in the Eric Adams case yesterday. The court finds that this case will involve information that has been classified in the interest of national security, and there's all of this sealed stuff entered on the docket in the United States versus Eric Adams. I mean, it certainly feels to me like the climate for Eric Adams to get pardoned is, it seems less favorable today than it might have a week ago.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm very excited by what I see abroad, looking at all this and the various news sources I comb through. But what I worry about a little bit is things are going, I think, very well. And what could the other side now do to derail the process of getting to blowing up the Protect Obama at Any Cost program, blowing up the, what could they do to to push us sideways here? That's what I'm worried about.
My take, Charles, is they're going to use the illegal aliens like we're seeing in Los Angeles now, where they're rioting. You don't see it anywhere in the mainstream media, and you look and they're shutting down freeways. Same thing in San Diego. So you're looking probably at anarchy, tyranny that they'll unleash on the public, and we'll be begging for them to stop it. The only solution for something like that is to get the National Guard, even the military, involved at this point, because they're not citizens. And
exactly.
I think that's where it's headed.
Are you seeing signs of that in New York, Jason? After George Floyd and stuff like that, we saw a lot of these
very little. I was walking around yesterday and made a comment that there was surprisingly little protest activity. I just wonder if they aren't prepping to really shock us by releasing the Eric Adams colonoscopy results.
Oh, Jesus,
that's where he's hiding all the money.
Oh, man. That's
a ridiculous headline for the New York Times when there's so much going on with this guy. They're like, did he have a colonoscopy? Did he? Who cares?
But didn't the New York Times get money from the USAID?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I just put in Eric Adams and tapped on news, and the first thing that comes up about this asshole is this.
Is his asshole.
But they're not saying anything about classified documents in his criminal case. He's joining him for a national prayer breakfast. What? Eric Adams is sniffing around for a pardon, and all they can talk about is his colonoscopy. Daily News says Bragg should indict him. That's not going to happen. Bragg is part of this team. Yeah, so here's where he said he needs 1.1 billion from state for migrant services. Forget it.
But in 12 weeks, he needs it.
Because probably there's a certain amount of cash flowing from these USAID adjacent organizations. And I mean, again, it's not even necessarily, I don't think, you guys know better than me, it's not even necessarily about finding an exact receipt from USAID to one of these things. It's such a broad network of sending the money all around to all these different things that everybody is feeding at the trough from this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's a land rush mentality, right? That people, it's really, it's horrible. It's horrible.
But if Bondi's cutting off sanctuary city money, it also applies to New York, Jason.
Right.
So that's why he's screaming.
Of course.
Good.
Of course. Well, listen, I am sensitive to Charles. We've got a variety of time zones on the call right here. People should be following Charles on X if they aren't already, at Charles Ortel. Also, if people haven't seen Bob before today, or if you're not yet following Bob on X, he's got a load of good information there. Bob Bishop, the forensic investigator. People should follow Bob. Check out what he's tweeting. You can follow me, of course, at JG_CSTT. And you can sponsor Crowdsource the Truth by going to odyssey.com/@Crowdsource the Truth. They've extended the use of Stripe through the end of February, so people can still subscribe on odyssey.com/@Crowdsource the Truth. Also on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/Crowdsource the Truth. Bob, thanks so much for joining us. Anything you want to say before we go?
Not really.
Well, when does
said.
Bob get his own cartoon character?
You know what? I don't know. I got to make a Bob cartoon character. I've slowed down with the cartoons. It's mostly Operation Paperclip cartoons now and lawsuits. But
Well, you did a good one on the Clinton Foundation when we did that show where you show me holding a gun as the accountant.
oh yeah, right. Yeah, no, we've
That
had
would be
various
one that
Bob
I would-
memes.
Yeah, that one I would go ahead and do as a cartoon.
Okay, we'll do that. All right. Well, listen. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and thanks Bob and Charles for an excellent show. I knew you guys would bring new insight to this. It's good to see finally some mainstream attention on this problem that both of you guys have been sounding the alarm about for 10 years or more. So thanks for tuning in, everybody.